Okay, welcome everybody again from the RASC-Kingston Center May meeting, and I'm so glad that you could make it. And we are also live streaming on YouTube, so welcome to those who are on YouTube. This evening we have Dr. Richard Schmude, who's going to give us a talk on the total lunar eclipse, but first we have some announcements. David Levy is going to present Thomas Hardy. David, take it away.
Well, thank you very much, Kim, and want to add my welcome to this Kingston Center meeting, and I'm so glad to be able to come here virtually, but so unhappy that I can't be with you in person. I hope to do that at some point in the future. As you know, and as you will know from our lecture coming up, is that Sunday night is going to be a pretty big night in astronomy, getting a total lunar eclipse. And where you are, it'll be in the mid-evening when it starts. Where I am, the first contact of the Umbra is right around moonrise. And the interesting thing about this eclipse, for me, will be the luminosity, because we've had a couple of major volcanic explosions in the last few months. And if the ash from these explosions has gone up into the upper stratosphere, we could expect and hope for a very dark lunar eclipse. The darkest one I ever saw was December 30th, 1963, with an L equals 0. At mid-totality, the moon simply was disappearing.
Whoa.
I have a poem to read to you tonight. It was, it was written by Thomas Hardy after the 1902 London eclipse. He wrote this in 1903. And it's not just about the lunar eclipse, but about the planet that we are seeing the lunar eclipse and its joys and problems. Thy shadow, earth, from pole to central sea, now steals along the moon's meek shine, in even monochrome and curving line of imperturbable serenity. How shall I link such sun-cast symmetry with the torn, troubled form I know is thine, that profile placid as a brow divine, with continents of moil and misery? And can immense mortality but throw so small a shade, and heaven's high human scheme be hemmed within the coasts yon arc implies? Is such the stellar gauge of earthly show, nation at war with nation, brains that teem, heroes and women fairer than the skies? Thank you very much, Kim, and back to you.
Thank you, David. That was lovely.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, we are going to have Bruce Elliott, who's going to give us an update on Science Rendezvous. Bruce? You're muted, Bruce. There you go.
Well, so there were two parts to this event. One was virtual, and the other was in person. And so I'll just speak briefly to the virtual part, and I'll try to project a little bit on the what happened in person. Although I wasn't able to attend any of those events. So the virtual sessions, they're going to be online all the whole month. And so there's they're actually getting people from all over Canada and even the US and in Europe signing in, to participate in them. And there's basically two types. One is sort of a webinar style, or a something that's completely virtual. And the other is there's some of them where somebody will take you on a it's a scheduled time when there's going to be a particular thing. For example, there's somebody from the physics department is leading a session on stellarium and walking people through how it can be done. The our center has, we have 3 online events right now, virtual. One is a star hopping video to navigate the night sky, which Susan Gagnon has, I don't know if is she here tonight? Anyway, so this is really amazing. It goes step by step, and it starts out very fundamental and builds up, and it's a really excellent, really excellent technique that is made readily accessible to people. So the second is a video on the origin of the universe, which our center put together with, and so Kevin Wenkoff and Graham Hay, and also Francesco Ambrose. I can't remember how to pronounce his name. Ambrosi. He's unfortunately Francesco is actually not with the our center right now because he got pretty involved in his graduate work. But anyway, this is a video on the origin of the universe, and it was a lot of fun putting it together. We had a great time, and our first presentation of it was to Leahurst College, which is a private school here in town, and we got and it was sort of a bit of a team effort because the students, we asked the teacher and to organize some questions. We had over 50 or 60 questions coming from a class of about 17 students, and this was the basis of how we put that video together. I personally learned an awful lot myself just by researching it and doing it. And then there's we had a simple sort of PDF, which actually I put together with the help of input from several other people, it just gives people ideas of what would be interesting to see in terms of the planets, and and of course the upcoming eclipse. Put that in as a special mention, and so there was and we introduced them to some links for stellarium and other things. So that's how that came together. And and so the other thing I wanted to say is that we have as our group actually has been we've been very much involved with the science center, with the science fair here, the local science fair, and so the last 2 or 3 winners of our trophy called the Leo Enright Trophy, I sent a link to the science rendezvous, and I sent it to the school where our 3 winners had awardees were, and I got back some, there were some emails coming back from principals, and from one set of parents sent something in thanking us tremendously for this, and that they were going to. I'm not sure whether any of them actually made it to our session, in our in-person session, and Kim or Kevin, you might want to say a little bit about the in-person session, the sun.
Okay, we had approximately about 350 people that came by the tent, and we had several telescopes set up. Hank has his solar scope set up, and he was busy nonstop, run off his feet. Mm-hmm. And Lori had her telescope set up, and Devin also was there to help out. Rick was there also at the table, and we also had our EAA set up to image the sun and project it onto a screen. And Kevin had posted a link in the chat list of all of the pictures that had been taken from various people and cameras. So if you have a chance, go ahead and take a look at them. It was a fun time. It's the first time we've been out doing outreach since since COVID started. However, we still are not able to get back to Queens and do any outreach there or have our meetings. So we're still hanging on for that. And until we hear from Queens that we're allowed back in, we won't be doing any in-house meetings. Back to you, Bruce.
Well, yeah, thanks, Kim. I think it's going to be exciting to hear even, more of what's happening, so some of the, especially the the virtual items. And I think that I'm expecting that we'll be hearing back more about, what people thought about it. And I'm going to pass on any of those comments so that we can all enjoy hearing what people.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bruce. Thank you for your help. And thanks to everybody and our volunteers that helped out on Science Rendezvous. Greatly appreciated. I'm really glad that we were able to get out in the public. And we weren't, I would say we were overwhelmed at some point because it's been a long time since we've done this. So we had to try to remember how to do it. So it was great. Okay, thank you. Up next, we have John Hurley, our NC rep, is going to give us an update on the GA.
Hello, everyone. Yes, the GA is coming up this year. At the moment, the title is Reach In, Reach Out, and Reach Up. We should be getting more information about registrations and stuff shortly, any day now. Please check the websites at RASC.ca. It is this year, the General Assembly is completely online once again. It's on the weekend of June 24th through the 27th. And that will be including the annual meeting, which is a separate thing inside there. So if you want to attend the GA, there is a small fee, but the annual meeting is open to all members. I believe you'll just have to register at National your intent to come in on that one, but details will be up on the website when they release that. It's a good list of what I understand. There's a good list of speakers, some of which have been tentatively confirmed. So they will be releasing that information when they open up the website. There is a small registration fee and probably some GA swag like last year. So should be a fun time. There's a as in addition to all the talks and stuff through Zoom that'll be on during the day, there will also be some time for socializing through an online event where you walk around with your little avatar and talk to people, meet people from across the country and across the RASC. Last year, it was pretty fun. It was interesting, learning experience for all, but it was great seeing some old friends and having a video link to them and saying hello and catching up and meeting new people. So I would really encourage everybody to participate and get the most out of your membership. Find out what's going on from coast to coast to coast. And I guess that's about it for now.
Okay, thank you, John. Also coming up next week is the Casca meetings, of which the RASC members could register for a fee of $15 and go to the Casca website if you wish to participate in those events. One night they're having trivia, another night they're having a cooking class. So that's going to be interesting. So I will carry on with our guest speaker and in case Richard needs to leave, but I will first want to introduce Richard Schmude. He's a life member of the RASC-Kingston Center. And Richard grew up in Texas, received Bachelor of Arts degree in chemistry and physics, a Master of Science degree in chemistry, and a PhD degree in physics from Texas A&M University. He's currently teaching both chemistry and astronomy at Gordon College in Barnesville, Georgia. Richard also is the chair of the Remote Planet section and on the board of directors of the Association of Lunar and Planetary Observers. He has written 3 books in astronomy, was Volunteer of the Year in 2005, and has a minor planet 30042 Schmude named after him. So I would like to welcome Richard to Kingston and giving us a talk, and great that you could come. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Kim. Okay, I guess I'll share my screen, right? Share screen?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay. Okay, let's see, slideshow. Okay, let's go from beginning. All right.
Excellent.
What I want to do is I want to talk about the big event coming up this Sunday and Monday. Actually, it's Sunday/Monday. And I kind of like to stick with universal time. However, I'm going to list the Eastern Daylight Time. I just want to ask one quick question. Is Canada on daylight savings time like the US right now?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Okay, good. So we don't have that 1 hour or whatever change. All right, so I've been actually watching lunar eclipses.
Arizona is not.
Arizona's, that's right, David, you're right, yes. I've been, I guess, studying or watching lunar eclipses for about 40 years now. I think my first one was in 1982 or 1983, and so they're very interesting events. All right. Well, this is just an overview of the talk. I do want to make some introductory remarks. I think that's important. That way I don't lose people right off the bat. And then I want to talk a little bit about just observing the eclipse. And of course, I want to do it from the standpoint of what you're going to see in Kingston. Now, if you are in somewhere else than Kingston, you know, the altitudes are going to be different, obviously. For example, in Arizona, although, you know, the moon is just rising, like David said. So, and again, you may have some challenges there. Actually, it's pretty good from where I'm at in Georgia, which is 800 kilometers or so south of Kingston. All right, and then I want to talk a little bit about some projects you can do, some simple ones, and then make some predictions and conclusions. All right, starting off, shadows. All shadows have 2 parts. Hold up 2 fingers, everyone. All right. You've got the very dark part, which is called the umbra, and you have the outer fuzzy part called the penumbra. And of course, the Earth casts both a penumbra and an umbra. Now, if the moon moves into the lighter portion of the Earth's shadow, it's not going to be very impressive. You might be able to see a dark shading on the moon. The excitement begins when the moon moves into the Earth's umbra. And that's the dark part of our shadow. Now, the light, when the moon moves into the Earth's umbra, the light source is blocked completely. However, there's a small amount of light that gets to the moon through our atmosphere that I'm going to talk about a little later. And that's why the moon usually does not disappear during a lunar eclipse. However, as David pointed out, it came close in the early 1960s. Now, in the penumbra, the light source is only partially blocked. So the sun may be half blocked when it's in the Earth's penumbra. And of course, the sun is so bright that, you know, even if half of it's blocked, it's still going to be very bright. Right. Moving on. Now, there's really 3 kinds of lunar eclipses. The first one is the penumbral eclipse, and that's where the moon only moves into the Earth's penumbra. They're actually not all that spectacular. However, with the photometer, I can measure the brightness drop of the moon, and I actually successfully did that back in the late 1990s and actually published the paper. I think there was about a 20% brightness drop. Then there's a partial lunar eclipse. That's where part of the moon moves into the umbra, but not all of them. Last November, how many people saw the eclipse last November? Oh, very good, David, very good. Raise your hand if you did. That was a partial. Now, it was almost total, but not quite. It missed it by just that much. What we're going to have in May, this Sunday coming up, is a total lunar eclipse. Of course, we'll get a penumbral and a partial too, along with the total. And that's where the entire moon is going to remain in the Earth's umbra for well over an hour. So this is going to be kind of a long lunar eclipse. All right. Now, what does the moon look like? Now, how many people have seen at least one total lunar eclipse? Raise your hand. Oh, very good, very good, very good. Well, this is what the one last November looked like. And you can see the reddish color, particularly in the center, maybe going a little bit towards the right. Of course, on the far left, that's that little sliver that was not in the Earth's umbra. But again, what color do you see? You see, I see reddish, sort of a reddish magenta almost, maybe a little bit of blue near the white area too. And again, the amount of ozone in our atmosphere actually affects the color of the moon. And as David pointed out, certainly major volcanic eruptions can, and even where I'm at, I'm in Georgia, I may even see the effects of this wildfire out in New Mexico because it's at roughly the same latitude that I'm at. So it's going to be an interesting event, and so I'm looking forward to it. Right now, question I'm going to ask you is, how is it the moon doesn't get completely black usually? The answer is our atmosphere. Our atmosphere bends light, and it also focuses light, and it absorbs light. So let me illustrate. What you have on the left is sunlight. And what happens is our atmosphere kind of acts like a telescope lens. It bends the light, okay? And you can see a little bit of it is bent, and it hits the eclipsed moon, okay? And that's why in almost all total lunar eclipses, you'll still see the moon. It's going to be something like 10,000 to 100,000 times dimmer than the full moon. This one might be a little dimmer than normal because of the volcanic eruptions we've had, possibly the major fire out in New Mexico might affect my view. Now, I don't think it'll affect you all's view up in Kingston, though. And of course, since the winds blow east, I don't think it'll affect people in Arizona, although, you know, we don't know. It'd be interesting to find out. All right, so that's a little bit about why the moon does not completely go black. And it's because of our atmosphere. Now, if we were standing on the moon, looking back at the Earth, we would see a very thin red circle around the Earth, which is our atmosphere bending primarily reddish light. All right, so the role of our atmosphere refracts or bends, absorbs, and focuses light. A small amount of this refracted and focused light reaches the eclipsed moon. And by the way, yeah, that's just the eclipsed moon. It doesn't affect it otherwise. And of course, as I said, the Earth would appear as a thin reddish annulus if you were standing on the moon looking back at the Earth during a total lunar eclipse. All right, now, let's move on now. There's some important times. Now, you should have the Observer's Handbook. That's a very handy book. It shows you the eclipses. There you go. Kim's got a copy there. That's going to be your companion there. It's got a lot of really good information there about this upcoming eclipse. First off, I want to stick with universal time as much as I can. The eclipse actually begins earlier than the times listed, but that's just the penumbral portion. That's interesting to observe. However, the real action begins when the moon starts entering the umbra. This is also known as point U1. And it's going to be about almost 10:30 Eastern time in the evening. This is Sunday evening. And then at about 11:29, all of the moon enters the umbra. Okay, and that's when things really get exciting. The moon's going to dim by roughly a factor of, I'm guessing, 30,000 or about 11 magnitudes. It'll go from magnitude -13 to about magnitude -2. Okay, then mid-eclipse is predicted to be around 4:13 Universal Time, or just after midnight Eastern Daylight Time. And then the moon begins leaving the umbra at 12:54 in the morning on May 16th, and then it completely exits the umbra about an hour later. So again, you've got from 11:29 to 12:54. That's about an hour and 25 minutes of totality. So this is really a good eclipse. Okay. And it's going to get a little darker than normal. And of course, the volcanoes may even make it a little darker still. So it'll be interesting to see what happens to both the brightness and the color. Now, I plan to measure both the brightness in both the blue and the green filters. So that way I get a measure of the color as well. All right. Now, what do you need to observe the eclipse? Well, actually, if you want to just enjoy it, no equipment is needed. Just look, but also listen, okay? Particularly if you're out in the country, you can hear crickets, you can hear birds. Listen as well as look. I remember the eclipse back in 2000. As I recall, there was changes in the sounds the animals were making. So this is something very important, especially if you want to like take a stab at some poetry. I think that that would be a really good thing to do. So use your ears and your eyes for this eclipse. Now, if you want to collect scientific data, then bring along binoculars. Now, you can actually do some pretty important experiments with just a pair of binoculars and your eye. But before you do that, you need to plan ahead a little bit. Kingston is about 45 degrees north latitude. So again, you're a little further north than where I'm at, which is 33 degrees north. So what's going to happen is that when the eclipse starts getting interesting, the moon is only going to be 17 degrees above the horizon, sort of in the southeast direction. And it will rise to a maximum of about 26 degrees at mid-eclipse. So plan accordingly. Get away from, I wouldn't observe it from, a city where you've got a lot of buildings, see if you can get out into sort of a flat area. And of course, the critical direction is east and south, okay? And select a location without a lot of tall obstacles. Now, I actually did this, ran some numbers through the horizons ephemeris to get these values. So again, the moon's not going to be as high as we would like it to be, but still it'll be good enough to observe. All right, some easy activities to do. You can note the color of the moon. Now, there's actually a Danjon scale, which I'm going to give you in a moment. This is also in the Observer's Handbook. I believe it's on page 138. I just bring that Observer's Handbook along, bring a red flashlight along. It's a very useful project just to note the Danjon number. And this scale's been around about a century now. And it's a quick and easy guide to sort of estimating how bright the moon is. I think the eclipse that David was talking about back in the early 1960s, it would have been had a Danjon number probably 0 because it was a very dark eclipse. It'll be interesting to see what this eclipse, considering the volcanic eruptions we've had. And of course, like I said, listen to the animal sounds. They may change. And the other thing is look for stars near the moon to suddenly appear. Okay. the moon's going to dim by about a factor of 30,000. That means stars near the moon are going to be visible, which were not visible before, say, 1129. So again, just some easy things. Now, the Danjon number, it is listed in the observer's handbook, but basically it's on a scale of 0 to 4, with 0 being the moon is almost invisible, and then you have sort of different colors for the moon. Deep red or rust color is a Danjon number of 2. Brick red is sort of a brighter red is 3, and then if you got an orange color, it may be a 4. So it'll be interesting to look for this. I am guessing the Danjon number is going to be a 1 or a 2. It could be, if it's sort of in between 1 or 2, you could say it's 1.5. Okay. All right. Now, the next step up, raise your hand if you have binoculars. Raise your hand. Okay. Now what you want to do is you may also estimate the brightness of the moon using a pair of binoculars. The only thing is you don't look correctly. You look opposite. In other words, you put the big lens close to your eye and look out that way. So you're looking in binoculars in reverse. So what you can do is look at the eclipsed moon through your binoculars. Let's say your binoculars are 7 power, okay? And you compare the brightness of the moon in binoculars to stars that are bright nearby. So for example, Vega is at a brightness of magnitude 0. So if the moon is as bright as Vega, then you just use this little equation here where MF is 5 times the log of the magnification. Okay, so let's say it's magnification is 10 power, so that would be 5 plus 0.31. So so your magnification factor would be 5.31 if you use 10 power binoculars. Okay. All right. So if the moon were as bright as Vega through the 10 power binoculars, the moon would actually be a brightness about minus 5.3 magnitude. But anyway, several people use this method. It's pretty accurate. It's about accurate to within about a half a magnitude. A better way is to use photoelectric photometry. That's what I hope to do, weather permitting. And basically what I plan to do is measure the whole brightness, whole disk brightness. Now basically, here's the trick. You're probably thinking big telescope, right? No. I'm going to actually use a telescope about as big as a 25-cent piece, okay? Because again, you need to get the whole moon in the photometer field of view. So you need a very short focal length. The focal length is going to be about 12 centimeters, so about as big as, I don't know, half the size of my hand, something like that. And I'm going to hook it up to the photometer, and that way I get the entire moon in the photometer field of view. And I'm able to measure the moon's brightness. I actually published a paper on this back in the journal about 20 years ago. Some people have also measured a small area of the moon during an eclipse. If my regular photometer does not work properly, I'm going to have to use a second technique, but let's just see what happens. Okay, so anyway, that's what I plan to do. And so that's probably the most involved project. There's only been about 6 total brightness measurements of the moon through photometry, whole disk. All right, so predictions and conclusions. The eclipse may be darker than normal. And again, as David said earlier, we've had at least one big volcanic eruption, if not more. Kilauea is erupting, and there may have been another one too, but I know we had a big one back in January. It was huge out in the Pacific Ocean. Also, at least in my case, I may have effects from the big wildfire out in New Mexico. The moon will move into the Earth's shadow, like I said, on May 15th and 16th. And I'm predicting the moon's going to turn sort of a reddish or dark reddish color. And then, of course, as I said, one may do several kinds of useful projects. This would be a good project even for children. The only problem is it's at around midnight, so it's kind of a late time for them. But certainly, I highly recommend going out. If you can, get out into the field, in the country, and listen and look. Okay, use 2 senses instead of just 1. And that's all I have to say. I'd like to thank you for having me, and thank you for your attention. And I'll open up the floor to questions.
Thank you, Richard. That was wonderful. I really like the idea of those projects.
Okay, thanks.
Anybody have any questions for Richard? No? I like
you
that. Oh, go
I
ahead,
do-
Susan.
Yeah, can you just go back to the looking at the moon through the binoculars backwards and
Sure.
just the little calculation page that you had there?
I think that's it right there.
Okay, so you minus, okay, that's why I was wondering what you were doing with this number once you got it. Yep, I see it now.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
That's good.
Okay. Okay. Very good, Susan.
And where would one find a photoelectric device to do the measurements with?
Okay. There's actually 2 ways you can do it. The traditional way is the SSP3 photometer manufactured by Optic Incorporated. They're based in Lowell, Michigan. You can just Google Optic SSP3 photometer, and you can even download the manual for the instrument. The other way is just get a CCD camera. Now you need to do some transformations, but you can actually take a picture of the moon, do your normal dark flats and dark corrections and flat fields, and you can integrate the brightness of the whole moon there. I'm sure there's some software you can use to do that with. And so that's 2 ways you can do it. David.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I really did enjoy your presentation. I'm really looking forward to Sunday. But I wanted to add that the first volcanic eruption was a perfect time. It was in early February, I think. It was Mount Hunga Tonga Hunga, Ha'aipai. It's a gigantic undersea volcano in the Pacific. And there's a little bit of an island peering through the waves right now. And but this was a big eruption, and the eruption totally changed the shape of that island.
Yes.
And then there was a second one coming just last month. Probably the darkness will be more from the first eruption, but the second one was also a very famous mountain, Anak Krakatoa. This is the child of the volcano that really exploded to pieces in 1883.
Yeah.
And that had a big eruption in April. So there should be a lot of dust in the Earth's atmosphere to darken the shadow.
Oh
So
my.
what happens?
I have a question for you, David.
Mhm.
I would like to know the name of that poem and poet.
Thank you. The poet was Thomas Hardy.
Thomas.
Thomas Hardy, Hardy. It's a very famous English novelist and
Okay.
poet. And the name of the poem is At a Lunar Eclipse.
At
A Lunar Eclipse.
a lunar eclipse. I would like to look that up. And I really appreciate you sharing that with me.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I'm glad that that worked out okay.
Okay, oh, Kevin?
What can you do about cloud and rain, Richard?
What you do is you go to the weather forecast and see where there's a clear area. And you
Travel.
need
I
to,
like travel. Yes.
yes, it's called, yeah, traveling. And, you know, the thing is, I'm guessing for Kingston, you know, you're right on the lake. So, you know, you may have some lake effects. So possibly traveling north, you might be able to escape the lake effects, or possibly you could, I suppose, try to travel south into the United States too.
Well, our 5-day forecast is not looking good, but we can rely on the fact that it is, in fact, a 5-day forecast, and they are never correct.
Okay, yeah, it's tricky predicting the weather near a lake. You know, of course, you're on a lake. Is it Ontario, or Erie? I forget which one.
Ontario.
Ontario. Okay. So yeah, mine is looking good, but not perfect. And of course, I may have to travel to Alabama. I mean, I'll have to just. And I've had to travel occasionally to avoid the bad weather. So.
Anybody up for a road trip to Arizona? Anybody? Anybody?
That would be interesting. Yeah. They're going to be clear this time of year, I think. David can probably tell us more, but their monsoons don't start until I think around July 1st.
Yeah, they're actually predicting some high clouds on Saturday and Sunday nights, but it's real. They're calling it mostly clear, so I'm not anticipating any problems with this. But if necessary, I just do the same thing as Richard suggested and find a spot where there is clearing. I did that once for a penumbral eclipse. It was very cloudy where I was, but there was a break in the clouds to the west. So I got in the car in the middle of the night, drove about maybe 60 kilometers to the west, pulled off the road, and then a police car pulled off behind me. And I told him what I was doing. He got very interested, and he and I observed that penumbral eclipse together from the roadside.
Oh, gee, wow.
I see. Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So I'm just looking at your slide on the screen right now. What is it about using the reverse binoculars in reverse? Why is that going to help you determine the brightness?
Okay, the big reason is the moon is an extended object. It's like yay big.
Yeah.
The star is like almost a pinpoint. So what happens is in reverse, you shrink the moon down to a small size.
Okay.
So instead of it magnifying by 10 times, the binoculars reduce the size of the moon by a factor of 10. That's the big reason. The second reason is it dims the moon too. The moon, even an eclipsed moon, is going to be brighter probably than the brightest star Sirius. And of course, the bright planets are not up until the early morning. So it's, in fact, I didn't even think Sirius is going to be up. You know, at midnight, it won't be, in fact. So your brightest star probably is going to be Arcturus, which is about magnitude 0 roughly. So you really need to dim that moon down. And I'd say about 7 power to 10 power binoculars will do the trick.
So what happens to the star? It's going to get smaller too, right?
Oh, no. What you do is you look at the moon through the binoculars, but you look at the star with your eye.
At the same time?
At sort of the same time.
Oh, I see. Okay. And
Good
then
question.
you're making the judgment on that. Okay.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And again, there's some uncertainty. Typically about a half a magnitude is what they say. However, if you get the whole club together and do it and take an average, I think that's a whole lot more reliable than a half a magnitude.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, good question.
Okay. I'm not seeing any more questions. Thank you again, Richard. That was fantastic. And we are going to be optimistic for Sunday night's clear weather. That's what we are going to be.
I'm going to be, yeah. I've been usually clouded out on eclipses. But I'm holding hope for this Sunday.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, next we are going to have Hank's Sunspot. Welcome back from the sunny Costa Rica.
Yes, I am back. And let me see what we do here. Okay, share screen. And thank you very much for that. Oh, wrong one. This one. There we go. Share. And slideshow. Start from first slide. Now, do we have a full screen for slide? Hank Sunspot? Was that a yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. Cool. I did it right. Holy. Okay, Hank Sunspot from April 13th, which was the date of our last meeting, to May 10th, which was yesterday. And it's just a little review of the monthly sun. And I have to admit that I am totally out of whack after being away for a month. I totally got, I took all my equipment, but I got away from even using that equipment. I know I'm whining again, the heat and everything, but it was also nice just to break away from everything. And I still haven't adjusted to getting back into groove yet, but I will with this next month. So I did try to catch a solar phenomenon in the center screen here at the bottom, which was the green flash. And unfortunately, this time, as opposed to last year in Tamarindo, it did not happen. There might be a little hint of it there, but the cloud was just a little too thick each night when we were at the Pacific coast for about a week. So it did not happen, as I say. So I've taken the liberty of including a few solar and non-solar images from March and April, which is a subtle way of saying I stuck a few of my vacation pictures in. And like most YouTube videos nowadays, this starts with an ad. And this ad is for Air Canada almost. It's been 49 years since I flew first class when I was 21 years old. We all decided to treat ourselves using our Aeroplan business points this time and fly business. Wow. That's the way to fly, I'll tell you. It's the only way to fly. Except Carlos was sad because he was traveling with us. Brandy and the kids went a week and a half ahead of us. And he had to sit by himself with a stranger, which in this climate, even in the diminishing pandemic, is still a little irritating to be with someone else. And we all agreed that it's worth it because the wine flows like water. The meals are great. And for those of you that might have flown, I don't know, many of you flew 747 back in the 70s. We used to fly back and forth in the early 70s from Toronto to Vancouver and back and that. And this was the kind of meal service and everything you got back then, even if you weren't in first class. And now it's, yeah, you know, bring a bun on by yourself or buy a cold bun when you get on there. So anyway, enough of that commercial, but it was great, but cannot afford it probably for another 49 years. During the days, Maxie, who's 7 and King is 11, learned to catch Playa Grande waves on the Pacific coast. And after dark, Carlos and I caught black Russians and dark sky from the third floor crow's nest of the beach house we had rented. And this is the picture at the top there, above the pool. And even with all that light, you can see how much the phone camera caught as far as the Pleiades there. And the sky is beautifully dark because there's so little light in a small place like that along the beach. But it's not something you want to wander out into, because last year, coming home from the Jupiter-Saturn phenomena at sunset, I almost stepped on a black scorpion on the road. So it's a thing that, unless you're a local, I think you're rather wise not to tread out into the night anywhere except in your own private yard. So I did not do that.
Hank, Kevin here. Can you just give a big picture overview? Where were you?
This is Playa Grande Beach, which is, I don't know if anybody knows what Tamarindo is, but it's in Costa Rica on the west coast. And this is about 20 minutes north of Tamarindo, south of, just trying to think of the name of the airport. I keep losing this name of, can't think of it, but it's in Guanacaste province, in Liberia, south of Liberia, just a little bit south of Liberia. So it's right on the Pacific Ocean, looking directly out into the setting sun. And we stayed there for intentionally a whole week, but by the third day, the house we had rented for a princely sum went south with a lot of problems, like ants in the drinking fountain, dead little tiny red ants in the drinking fountain, and ants living in the toilet, one of them, and a lot of other little incidentals that were just wrong. And we left there and we moved to another place in Playa Flamingo, which is just a little north. So my first solar images of the trip certainly made me appreciate the equipment that I have back home and the processing. I took my netbook and ACDC 4.0 that I have from like 20, 30 years ago, and it just did not work well. And so when I came home, I reprocessed the images, but the center image here is the image that I caught with my cell phone. I did not take my DSLR. I should have, and next time maybe I will, but I tried that, and the image didn't come up too bad on the left-hand side there. And the one on the right was with my Canon SX600 at the eyepiece of the Mac 90. Decent photo in white light, not so great in the H alpha. And above, of course, is that drink or that sipping cocktails by the pool that I mentioned there. But I did catch a few people and talk to them about RASC and also about imaging and viewing the sun and everything. So I managed to get a little public outreach there. And on the 29th, last night there, and this was the last night on the Pacific, and this was the night at, or one of the 3 nights at Playa Flamingo, which was the Margaritaville Resort. And it was fantastic. It had everything we wanted, and a beach right across a lightly driven road. And you can see here AR 29, 78, and 76 sinking into the ocean as the sun went down. I hoped again to try and get the green flash on that night, but it did not happen. It was too much cloud. But I was surprised to find out when I got a closer look at the images that the sunspots were in that well. It turned out good. So that makes it astronomical for me. So that's a fair play in getting that into the pictures. This, as is my backdrop, was that last night. And Playa Flamingo and storks overhead, and lots of them flying just like geese in a V and up and down the water and diving into the water and getting fish. It was fantastic. To El Bosque in central Costa Rica near La Fortuna. And this is the traveling equipment I had. On the left is my Mac 90. On the right is the Coronado SolarMax 40. And in the middle is the hat rack that it was most of the time I was there, because it was either too cloudy or, as I say, too damn hot. It's very, very humid, very, very still most of the time, and just unbearably hot. I tried to sit in that little gray chair in the background as much as possible, but when you're imaging, you can't. And the mount is the Skywatcher AZGT-I go-to mount. I had a little difficulty when I first got there. It would not accept the new location no matter what I did. We finally ended up, my daughter Bridie and I decided we were talking about it. We totally uninstalled, reinstalled, started over, and it did take it. And it worked quite well. Set it up, point it north on a level, go to the sun. And it worked really well, tracked really well. Until the one day I was out around noon and it started to not, the sun started to drift out of view. And no matter what I did, I could not get the scope to go to it. I could not get to go to it. And then I remembered that it had put up a little note saying, I can't think of the term it used, but it was telling me that it could not observe the sun. And I thought that was just because the sun is bright, you know, you're not supposed to observe it. But it was a point of overhead is impossible directly over zenith, because you can only tilt the scope one way unless you do what I did at one point, was shorten one leg of the tripod, the one facing us all right now, to get the scope to tip a little bit. Because when you're looking straight up, you can rotate around the center core, but that's all. You still got that hole in the middle like a donut that you cannot get into. So being down at near the equator at only 10 degrees north, there was no chance of any way of getting the azimuth to pick up the sun. So something learned for sure. And that just means go out, you know, at 10 o'clock or go out at 1 or 1:30, not around noon. And also, Kevin, something that you mentioned about the Celestron at the public view, observing on the weekend, getting it set up in the daylight and that. This also has something to stop you from viewing the sun. And you do have to, they didn't mention it in the book. I had to go hunting for it and found a place where I have to agree that I want to look at the sun. And then it brings up a math function like 80 plus 43 equals. And you have to answer that to show you're not a little tiny kid or an idiot. And then you can go from there and try to go to the sun. But there is still another spot that you have to flip to that they don't tell you about to get the sun in, which is in tracking. So once you figure those things out on your own, you're okay. In the center is one of the images that I took with my phone again. It had a really nice large prominence on what is there, the west, but it was on the east. And not a bad image for that camera and everything at all. I have not reprocessed that image. But the first part of the month and the end of March when we were away was not that great for solar, but it did start to pick up after a little while. And that was on the 16th of April. Something wonderful happened. Oh, this trio of sunspots came around and started to provide some incredible activity. And the rest of the month was full of amazing eruptions and prominences. This trio produced 91C, 21M, and 2X class flares as it passed across, and once it passed around the limb on the west side. There was a couple of those X flares. One was on the face, a couple of them were around the other side on the west and blasted out from behind. This is, just hold on a sec. I got to move this down out of the way, that taskbar. This is on the 25th of April, AR 29, 93, 94, 95, same trio, approaching the west limb. And you can see the amount of activity in H alpha across the left-hand image. The activity was amazing, and the filaments and bright spots, prominences were just average decent, but you can see also in the playage on the right-hand side around the sunspot areas was considerable as well, mostly in the northwestern, and that coincides with all the activity area and brightness that there is on the H alpha. So it was a great time, but This was my first day back home. Actually, these were on the 26th, sorry. Arrived back home on the 25th. During the days in between from the 16th and that, I did take a few images, but they were pretty bad and I didn't even bother to show them here. On the 28th, home for a few days now, and I was lucky enough to get this image. And the next day, Keith emailed me and was talking about this prominence that he saw that came shooting off the west limb of the sun. And that's this one on the west limb right there, pointing down on a, oh, sorry, it's not, pointing down on the angle. And I sent him the picture and I said, could this be it here? And he said, yeah, that's it. That's exactly. And that prominence lasted only about an hour. It burst out in a flare and shot down and constantly changed, but I only happened to catch it and did not even notice that I had caught it until I brought it in and started doing processing. And this is one of the things that when you're doing, especially H alpha, there are things that you don't even notice sometimes, but you bring the image in, you over brighten it, and then things just start to pop. And that's when you start using software to heighten them and bring them up to a brightness that everyone can see. You know, I know Kim and Keith both have questioned at times, like, where do you get all that? And it's just, you just got to lighten it up, find it. And once you know where it is, you can dodge and detail it and bring it up. And so this was a real nice image and a real nice surprise to have that. Then on the 30th, the X 1.13 flare of 2994. This is 29 minutes past peak on a flare like this is like almost as good as being there at max, because the flare itself isn't a great deal, but a bright flash and an instant jump out. But as it continues, the energy starts moving the hydrogen out into space. And it made it into these two fingers here, or like a large open bird beak or something. And the picture on the right is the initial image, and the left is what I processed it into. And you can see that the upper image, or the upper portion of it, the straighter one of the two, is almost not visible on the right-hand side. I don't know if on your screens and what size of screen you're using, it is there, very little right there, which is this bright spot here. And it's just amazing to watch something like this. And I would have liked to have stuck around and waited for it to collapse, but that could be in half an hour, 2 hours, or the next day. And this one, it did collapse at 1512 from the start at 1337. So it was a little, you know, it was less than 2 hours and about an hour and a half. And I could have stuck it out and it would have been nice, but there's plenty of other things, unfortunately, to do in life when you've been away for a month and everything has fallen behind, like getting the pool running and stuff. This brings me to something I really enjoyed, and I thank you all that were there. It was an amazing day. It seemed a lot busier at times than what it really was, but I think, as Kim mentioned, it was a little overwhelming. I know there was one time in particular, Kevin, can you bring me some hand sanitizer? Because they have a bottle of it on the table. And he brought it over because suddenly I just felt like I had the grunge of the world on my hands from moving the ladder back and forth for the kids, and the kids holding their hands on it and everything. And I just had to get it cleaned, but I didn't want to leave the scope alone. And but I found this time, for my little bit of this event, there was a lot more adult interest. And the kids are getting much more informed, or just the informed ones were there because only the people who braved it all went out to it. Because if I mentioned about observing the sun and, don't do it unless you have a special scope, don't do it on your own, don't turn binoculars. And they all looked at me like, well, duh, you'll blind yourself, and some of them said that, well, you can't do that because it would blind you. And so the kids are either getting smarter or more well-informed. And I really like that. It's fantastic. We had, I think, a really great setup there. And the picture of Kevin smiling was just wonderful. And the posters that Gloria did, fantastic. And we even had some celebrities and paparazzi in the upper right-hand corner there. I'm sure you'll all be able to figure out pretty well who that was, liberally speaking. So from there, how'd that get on there? Somebody threw that. Oh, you were drawing around the other image. Yeah, the guy at the telescope. Sorry, Kevin, I switched on you too fast. So although I don't usually do anything about the current day, because it's just too much to pack that in right before putting this all up. This was today up until supper time. And look at the activity here. And we had 3 M flares. And they did not assign the last 2 M flares yet, but the first one was 3007. And I think those other 2, when I had clipped this, are probably now assigned to the same one. The same area was brightened when I was looking at it. Absolutely amazing. Missed them all mostly. When I did my last images, which I have not even looked at today, it was still M flare about the M2.2 level, I think, for 3007. So I'll get those processed later and we'll see them next month. So I hope next month that there's a great deal to say about this particular pair of sunspots, 3007 and 3006. 3006 was the one that sent us the X flare the other day, which was, I think, absolutely unexpected. The only thing they were saying about the spot was that one small spot in the middle, which if I can get my cursor in the right spot, right about here, I believe on this larger spot area, was reverse polarity. Instead of being plus minus, it was minus plus, or vice versa. I'm trying to remember which was which. But anyway, it was reverse polarity. And then that eruption happened not too many hours after that. So it's either switched and calmed it down, or maybe we're going to see some more activity from that spot. But these X flares are absolutely amazing. And we just got to catch one in time and got to sit down and keep the graph up on the screen so I can see it happening. Unfortunately, X flares happen way too fast. So the summary of this past meeting month is 20 active regions, 5 X flares, 35 M flares, and 229 C flares, for a total of 269 flares altogether. Had I been home, I would think I would have more observing sessions than 13, but then everybody told me that you were having a lot of cloud and crappy weather here. So maybe I did fairly well down there. I had 5 observing sessions down south during the month, and that's all, but 8 here when I got home. So that's it for this month. Thank you very much, and I'll stop my share.
Thank you, Hank. That was fantastic as usual. It's
Thank
certainly
you.
is nice watching the flares take off, even if they're C's or M's.
Oh, isn't it? And some of the C flares, I remember one time somebody, I think it was Malcolm, questioning about the excitement for a C flare, but it wasn't the point of the being a C flare. It was the size of the C flare. It was massive in width and breadth, and it made such a large, bright area. So there's always something good. Thank you.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you so much. Next up, we have Rick Wagner with What's Up in the Sky for May.
Okay, just share my screen here. Participants can now see your application. Okay, the sky for May. Local events, the webinars, the colloquia from the Queen's University Physics and Astronomy group pretty much ended for the summer, so we won't see any of those, I guess, until September or October. And the Queen's University Observatory, Nick Aurora and Connor Stone have been doing their Fast Radio Burst podcasts when they interview astronomers about various subjects. And they've added an episode 2 to their Universal Chronicle, The Dark Ages, and Abyssinia Observatory. And it took me a little while to figure out that Abyssinia is a takeoff on I'll Be Seeing Ya. I think this is their last Fast Radio Burst podcast. So each of them talking to the other one. Very interesting little presentations, and you can see them on their website. The British Astronomical Association is gradually moving back to in-person events and fewer webinars. 14th of May, the historical section is going to be having a presentation on Asian observations of a total solar eclipse a century and a half ago. AAVSO webinars this month on the 28th of May, the members only talk from Adam Rees, surprises from the expansion of the universe. Of course, Adam Rees is one of the people who did the work on the expansion of the universe, measuring the Hubble constant and so forth. Then on the 4th of June, Tom Calderwood, how to think about transformation. So this is taking your BVIR observations and correcting for variations in your filters and cameras so they match more accurately with other people's observations. And that's a how-to hour, so it's open to everybody. Lennox and Addington Deep Sky Viewing Area on the 27th and 28th has a laser-guided stargazing tour. On the 4th of June, their astrophotographers assemble, which, as far as I can tell, basically is a bunch of astrophotographers show up and they all sit around. And because everybody's imaging, nobody complains too much about monitors and stuff. And then on the 11th of June, up close with the moon. North Frontenac Deep Sky Preserve, 21st and 22nd of May, the Virgo and the Realm of the Galaxies. And notice that they have the 16-inch Newtonian that was formerly at Fred Lossing Observatory, Ottawa Centre, is now installed and running up there. So a relatively large telescope to look through. Hours of darkness, there's getting to be far too few of them. You can see right about now 5¼ hours of astronomical darkness. By the end of May, we're down to 4 hours. Oh, say, there's a full moon and a total lunar eclipse on Sunday. I should cover all the details that Richard Schmude missed. So that's all the details he missed. Here's the timing for the local area. About 10:30 it starts, and it's over about 2 o'clock in the morning. 18th of May, Neptune will be 1/2 degree north of Mars. It's about 7 magnitudes fainter than Mars, but with only 1/2 degree between them, Mars will be a nice guide point to find Neptune. 22nd of May, the last quarter moon. The 22nd to the 27th of May, with all the planets lined up above the southeast horizon. The moon crosses by south of them or underneath them all over that 5 days. 29th of May, Mars and Jupiter come to closest approach, 0.6 degrees apart. New moon on the 30th of May, and on the 31st of May, we may be treated to the Schwarzmann-Wachmannids. The Schwarzmann-Wachmann 3 comet broke up in 1995, and there's a theory going about that some of the particles from it may have been ejected forward of the comet along its orbit. And if that's the case, we could end up, no guarantees, but we could end up with a significant meteor storm at 1 o'clock in the morning of the 31st of May. So we'll keep an eye on that, see if any further news comes out. Early June, up until our next meeting, there's first quarter moon. That's about it. So the eclipse, here's a view of the sky from Stellarium. You can see first contact at 10:30. The moon is in the southeastern sky. Second contact means it's the start of totality. And totality ends just about as it's going across the meridian, reaches its highest point. And fourth contact at 1:55. Here's a picture of the 18th of May Mars and Neptune conjunction. You can see they sort of blend together in this view. Jupiter to the left and Venus low to the further left. 22nd of May, the moon is near Saturn. The 24th, it's south of Neptune. 25th, it's below Jupiter and Mars. 26th and 27th, it passes Venus. Should be a very attractive set of groupings. And just a hint, a premonition, forward looking to June, the planetary lineup remains pretty much similar, except that Mercury will also be appearing down on the left. So it'll be an interesting chance to see all the major naked eye planets, and Neptune and Uranus are in there as well if you have a telescope. So, and here's the view through a telescope. The Mars-Jupiter conjunction, you can see that they fit nicely. I can't remember the field of view on this. I had that figured out at one point.
I think you said
0.85 degrees. Yeah, so this field of view is about 0.85 degrees. Small bodies on the 4th of May, 13 Egeria was at opposition at mag 9.9, so you can still look for that one. And coming through June, comet 2017 K2 Pan stars may be brightening up to be something interesting to look at, probably binocular brightness. It's one that was discovered several years ago, and when it was out, I think near Saturn, and in fact, in looking back at past images, they detected it out as far as Neptune. So it's a big active comet, and hopefully it'll do something exciting for us. 28th of May, 381 Mira is going to occult a star. Unfortunately, the star is rather faint at 13.8 magnitude, and the asteroid is at 12.8, so the combined object only drops by about 1/3 of a magnitude. However, that should be visible. And you can see here's the path. The green line in the center of the frame is the middle of the path. The blue line is the edges of the predicted path, and the red lines are the 1 sigma predictions. So you can see they're pretty confident on where this should be occurring, and it should be visible to all of us given decent weather. That's all I have. Any questions?
Thank you, Rick. That's great. Now we just have to have the same clear weather we've had this last week.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So next we're going to do the members observing reports like we did last month, where we had participants talk about what they've observed over the last month. So I'm going to start and put Elena on the spot.
Nothing this month, thanks.
Nothing? Okay. Hank, we know you've done the sun, but have you been out observing anything else?
No, not at all. Just the sun, and that's it.
Okay. John.
Not much to report, just trying to image with the new camera, but the pictures I take are never anywhere as good as what I can observe. Lots of seems to be flares and dust motes, and I don't know what else is. Half the image is bright, half the image isn't, and just plugging away, but I'm getting recognizable stuff now, so that's better than what I started.
That's good. So the focusing is working.
And that's it for now.
Okay. Lori.
Pretty much just solar and a little lunar.
Yeah, the moon looking nice out there tonight.
Yeah, I looked at it when it was just past noon.
Yeah. Okay. Richard Wagner.
Okay, I'll share a screen here. Oops, I shared the desktop. So this is one of the stars that I've been observing with the RASC remote telescope. This is called, I've lost the title, BPS something or other. I've lost BPS BS 165530026. Now, you can see I've got a couple of long nights. The blue dots and the red dots are nice long runs. Most of the others I was observing differently at the time. But it's interesting that in spite of the fact that the curves look rather nice and smooth, which indicates that I'm getting good photometry, the curves are nothing alike between different nights. And so that indicates to me that this is what is called a Blazhko star. So it's a high amplitude delta Scuti star, which means it's a star that's sort of around 1.5 times the mass of the sun. And it pulsates with a period of a few hours, but the pulsations go through a cyclical increase and decrease and phase change and stuff. So you can see that the maximum in the blue line is earlier than the maximum in the red dots. So this is a star I will be continuing to follow. And this is all done with the RASC remote telescope.
Okay, thank you. Next is Susan.
April was a very good month for me. I got back into observing after a period of wimping out in the cold weather, and got a lot of reporting on my variables. And when the moon started up this month, I got some pictures that I have not processed yet, but I found there was a discussion on one of the social nights that Keith was having trouble focusing on the sun, and there was a suggestion, well, put your batten-off mask on and have a go at focusing on Venus or something else during the day. Well, I'll tell you that I put the batten off mask on at night when there was some moon in the sky, and I had a heck of a time dealing with any star and it wasn't even the full moon, right? It was about first quarter, and I was less than first quarter actually, and I had a heck of a time getting any star in the camera. I was just using the DSLR. It wasn't a specific eyepiece camera or anything like that. So good luck with that, focusing on something with a batten off mask during the day, because I don't think it's going to happen. So relax, Keith or Wolfgang. And that's my report.
Thank you, Susan. That's funny. Bruce.
Well, I've been going out looking at the early morning planets, and so I found it really neat to see how they slightly change, and even more so their position, and that early morning conjunction of Jupiter and Venus was amazing. So I did get a couple of pictures, and hopefully I'll have a chance to share them at our meeting, at one of our meetings in the next while.
Okay, thank you. Andrew.
Yep. Sorry, hi, I'm here.
Hi.
I'm actually doing, I have to admit guiltily, I'm doing a little bit of marking on the side, so I apologize. I've been listening what's going on. This week, actually, because I'm going through the Isabel Williamson Lunar Observing Program right now for RASC, and so earlier this week, when the sky finally cleared up, I got outside to observe the moon, which is just fantastic. I don't know what, and of course, I'm very excited about this weekend. I looked at the forecast too with misery, hoping that we don't get clouded over completely going into the eclipse on the weekend, because I'd really like to get a chance to get out and see that as well. And but that's pretty much what I've been doing for the last little while. And I have to say that, you know, if anybody hasn't actually looked at that program, it's really detailed and it's pretty simple, right? Because it's an easy object to look at. And for a novice like me, I just find that it's a great way to test out eyepieces and my moon filters and stuff like that, and sort of get better at with the mounts and stuff. Because I'm in the suburbia here, so I usually have to do a setup and a takedown every day. I can't sort of leave my kid outside overnight or for days at a time. So I'm getting really slick with getting, you know, my 8-inch up, the power all connected, get the go-to set up and everything, and get going. So it's great practice. You know, it's like reading a pit crew, but with a telescope.
Okay, great, thanks. Okay, Brian.
Sorry, I was muted. No observing, but I have been busy planning the photo shoot for the eclipse this weekend. So that's what I've been busy. So I'm fingers crossed for the weather.
So are you planning on traveling if you need to?
I don't want to have to do that. So no, it'll be hopefully around the house, or I can travel couple kilometers away, but I don't really want to travel further than that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good luck. We all need good luck this weekend. Right. Okay. Next we have up Mark Gloria.
Yeah, I've been out the last couple of nights, and I'm finding it hard staying up past 10 o'clock before it even gets dark enough. But so the last couple of nights I managed it, and I found the moon was being a real nuisance myself. But the first night I just kind of was hitting the go-to button and going to different things. I put my telescope to the north, which is a bit of a change for me. And I have Sky Safari 6 on my tablet, so I just go to something. And then a lot of the more common artifacts, I guess, have an audio tour that you can just hit the button, and while you're looking at it on the screen, you can get a rundown on and it describes what you're looking at and how far away it is and the magnitude and all that stuff. So that was kind of interesting. I just kind of laid back and did that little tour. And last night I tried, I took my reducer off my telescope and used my little 224 camera, because I wanted to try to start getting some shots of maybe some planetary nebulas. And usually they're really small. So I took my reducer off and used my planetary camera. But boy, that's really like looking for a needle in the haystack, because the chip size is really small. So it's really tough. But I did get looking at NGC 40, which, if anybody's familiar with that, it's a really bright red planetary nebula and it's kind of neat. So I'm going to try to get some pictures of that with a little bigger profile now that I have my reducer and that off. So I'm kind of looking around at planetaries right now. And but yeah, it's hard to stay up. That was it for me.
That's only because it's so nice during the daytime and we're outside all day.
Yes, that's correct.
That's what it is. Yes. Okay, Fred.
Audio?
Hi there.
Yeah,
Yep,
hi.
we can hear you.
I've been out many nights, but 2 nights I was up to the observatory at the corner that was sold recently, helping the new owners with the original owner get themselves up to speed and using the software and all that sort of thing. It was quite interesting. Do you know who purchased it?
No.
Judith and Richard?
Oh, yes, yes. Oh,
Yeah.
Is it close to you?
Yeah, it's 500 meters.
Oh, well, that's not bad.
So it's I'm looking forward to quite a few nights there
Oh, good.
in coming days.
That's
We're
excellent.
having a lot of fun.
Excellent.
Generally, I've just been going out with my binoculars, and when I'm walking the dog, and I'll sit down at the side of the road because it's dark everywhere here. And if something's interesting, I'll have a look. Of course, lately I've been seeing a lot of bugs. So, and you can't see much when you're wearing a screen over your head. So I hate to say it, I wish for a little colder weather so it drives them back underground. Anyway, it's been a fun month. And these are fun days. And Sunday will be clear.
Yep. Okay, we're going to hold you to that.
All right. Check me out next meeting.
Okay.
Or next chat.
All right. Keith.
Well, I've been doing my ongoing focus problem, and I think I'm getting close to sorting that out. The last few nights, I was contemplating going outside to do a little night viewing, but the Embury facility down the road from me has been decided to use the evening to spread the countryside with pig poop. So,
isn't that bad, Keith?
Oh, Jesus.
It's been terrible.
Yeah. So, and they just did last night, they did the guy across the street, the 2 farms on the north of me. Well, Jesus, I couldn't breathe. There was no way. I mean, it was almost like you're sucking in solid stuff. It was terrible. So, and it's been like that for the last couple of days. So it's impossible. And of course, I went out during the day a few times, and of course, those lovely little black flies, they love me with a passion. I have got bites everywhere. So what I did do is I didn't bother with the scope, but I did paint all my woodwork on my observatory with water repellent, and it should be good for another year. But I am narrowing down my focus problem, and I think I've got it. So hopefully I will have some better pictures in the future.
Excellent.
And that's it.
That's great. That's good. Okay, Leslie.
I know.
No, not out observing or taking pictures. Okay. Mark K.
Mark is muted. Okay, so Kevin will narrate. So here's a picture with a bunch of stars in it. And I don't see it.
M13.
I don't see a title.
M13, yeah.
Okay, I'm taking a
There we
picture
go.
here of NGC 6207. It's this galaxy here.
Okay.
Yeah. And then there's this thing in the corner here. I don't know what it is, but it's just a nuisance. Anyway, and so I finally got my mount working and I'm started to take some pictures. So I've got a whole bunch more of these, and one of these years I'll figure out how to stack them. So anyway, that's what I've been doing. Other nights I just was out observing because I was having so many problems getting the mount started. Once I got it started, I was just wandering around observing this and that. It's been pretty nice, actually. So I'm enjoying these clear skies that are going to probably last until Saturday, right? Because we have an eclipse on Sunday. So anyway, there you go. I will stop sharing, except like, where's the stop share button gone?
This
I understand. I
this little
understand the problem people
quadrangle.
have because it should be at the top of the screen here, but
Run
it's
your
not.
mouse. Run your mouse to the top of the screen.
Yeah, and I understand it. People say, "Well, you know, where's this? That button's not there. Usually, it's there." So let me just see whether I can.
It's hidden. It'll unhide itself when you run the mouse up there.
Nope. I'm running the mouse up there, and it's not unhiding. So I can see that people do have.
By the bottom of the screen, then mine's at the bottom.
No.
Yep. No, nothing there. Let me just try hitting
That's
this
okay.
button.
I've stopped sharing for you.
Okay,
whose
maybe
screen
my
is that?
screen is crashed. Oh no. Anyway, there we computers. As I say, you know, usually when you share the screen, you got at the top, you have a little green button that says stop sharing. Well, it wasn't there.
You may need a higher powered computer. We have one in the other room that behaves as you're suggesting, and it lags and it doesn't respond to commands.
Well, this is just an i7 generation 7 computer with 12 gigs of RAM and
but it's
clock
running
speed
Windows.
of 3.1. So I don't think it's that slow.
No, that's a fast system.
Yeah.
Kevin, are you telling us that's what's wrong with children? That's why they lag behind and don't listen because they need an update or an upgrade. Sounds reasonable. I believe it. Absolutely.
Okay. Thanks, Mark. Okay, Mike Haynes.
I've been out observing quite a bit. I started on the new moon weekend. I was still yet to finish off my 15-inch telescope that I built last winter. I had a lot of little bugs. I couldn't get it to focus on low power eyepieces. High power was no problem. So I observed the first night with a high power eyepieces in the telescope. And last winter, I wasn't sure about the optics, even though they checked out with the Foucault tester and the raunchy gratings and stuff. But the seeing was so bad when I went to test it in January that you really couldn't get anything at high power, and I couldn't get the low power eyepieces to focus. So and it was cold. So I got frustrated, kind of put that in the garage, and I got it going on the new moon weekend. And I was getting some really good views at high power, and then I ordered a new focuser, a lower profile focuser, and that solved the focusing issues quite nicely. And new finder scope, not a new one, I just robbed one from another telescope and a few other things and got it working. And I've been using that telescope and at the same time using the computer with the Chem 70 mount and doing some astro imaging as well. And I did get out to look at the sun with white light a couple times as well. But yeah, I did a whole night looking at started with M3 once I got everything working properly with the 15-inch, and then went on and did about I don't know, probably around 15 Messiers in one evening, and then the moon got brighter and brighter, and I kind of just wheeled the scope back into the garage, and I haven't observed the last couple of nights, but I'm pretty happy I got that 50-inch scope working really nicely. So that's a bonus. And the one night I was observing with it, I also was doing imaging at the same time as it would go through a run. of red, blue, and green, and I could just sit there and observe and pick off a few Virgo galaxy cluster objects as I went through. So it's been a good time so far.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing. Roger.
Okay, I'm not muted anymore. All right, I've actually been having a bit of fun with my new, to me, 80mm f7 triplet apo, and that's a view of the moon through it at the moment, through Canon 60D, and I also last night, let's see if I can get this video there. It's this one. Okay.
Oh, nice.
Yes. And so I've got that on repeat. That was last night again through the little tiny $45 Wise cam, so I've got that going at night, and every now and then I pick up one of these things, and it's kind of cool. So that's it. Thanks very much.
So is your time in UT?
No. Eastern Daylight Time.
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
I should do that. That's a good idea. Thank you.
Okay. Rosemarie.
There, unmute. There we go. About the only thing exciting was the Eta Aquarids, which I did not see any meteors at all. Now, where the heck did my screen go? Okay, supposed to go to. Now, why can't I get this full screen here? Okay, if I can do share screen.
Okay.
Bring up my one picture. What are you doing? Where the heck? Picture. Okay, can you see that picture?
Yes.
Okay. Kathy had mentioned on the email list about seeing Starlinks coming over the one night, and that was the morning of the meteor shower. And I was setting up the camera, and I just noticed something out of the corner of my eye moving. So I swung the camera up. I had the camera set for a 20-second exposure. So I just caught, you can see 1, 2, 3 of them coming over. And they're moving really fast, but that's about the first time I've seen like a good view of the Starlinks coming over. But you can see how bright the stupid things are.
Did we lose? No, she's still there.
About the only thing I've
I think the internets are not so good in Rosemary's Lake area.
done. I had the camera set up, and like I say, I was looking for those. Been having them
Okay.
chasing.
I keep losing you, Rosemary.
But and I've
And no,
Rosemary. Yep,
she's
still there.
still with us. Just stop
Okay.
sharing.
Okay, next on the list is Kevin and Cal.
Wow, where do I start? Share screen 2. Oh, share screen 1. So Roger, I'm going to guess that your camera is looking to the north, because this morning at 0702 UT minus 4 is 0302. We caught this big one here in the north. And that's from the All Sky 2 system from the UWO. On the All Sky 1 Pi system, we're just going to keep a look right about here. I'm going to go back a picture. Oops, I have to do it this way. Go back and forth. And you'll see right here, something appears and disappears. And that's the same one to our north. And I could probably actually dig out a movie, but that's a little bit trickier. Andrew, Isabel Williamson, congratulations. That is not an easy observing certificate program. That's intermediate or possibly even advanced. If you find yourself getting bogged down or stuck or whatever, look, explore the moon. That's the one I'm trying to start doing. It's a better introduction to see if you're even interested in it, because the Isabel Williams, I've tried starting five times in the last 10 years, and it doesn't work for me. I've got to do the other one first.
The thing I did is that I actually started with the Explore the Moon, but I was getting so interested that I kind of got dragged into the other one.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
But I take your point. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. Hank, the April 30th, January, February, March, April 30th, X1 flare you see on the screen now.
Yes.
This is a graph from Radio Jove. It's listening at 20 megahertz. And the screen that you see here is 30 minutes from left to right, and the X flare is in the middle, and it goes off scale almost vertically. Yeah. So you know something big happened fast. Now, the strange thing is it didn't last that long. This was 6 minutes, so it looks like about 3 or 4 minutes.
Yep,
maximum duration on the radio. And the flares are different. Every flare behaves differently, and this is a good example of it. Now, the flare, X flare from day before yesterday, this is just before it. It's also a 30-minute scale, and I'm just going to step through this one. No, it's shrinking. Let me lock the zoom size here. View, zoom, lock. Okay, so I'm stepping through 30 minutes. What if I do that? And it starts going off scale, but it's not a vertical line. And it's way off scale and stays off scale. And still, so this is an hour and a half in before it finally descends down. So we also have the ability to audio record these, and the audio recorder was in fact working. And we listened to it, and what it turned out to be, most of this was not the X flare itself. This was WWV out of Boulder, Colorado, transmitting a time signal at 20 megahertz.
No,
we almost never get it here, and I think we've attempted with shortwave radios, and we think that we're in a shadow zone of radio signal bounce. And we never, ever pick up WWV for time signal when we're trying to do occultations, timings, or things like that. So what we think is happening is that X flare ionized the ionosphere so much that we started getting bounces, and not only bounces, but focused, amplified, blow you out of the sky kind of noise. And I'm not going to play these for you because they are very, very loud, but it's just another fascinating thing that happens. And the last thing I had to mention is that I've done my first batch of planetary imaging this year about 2 weeks ago. And this is of Saturn early in the morning, about 4:30 a.m. And I brought the run in, and I have not processed them yet because I have a brand new computer that's refurbished. And I've got software installed. I've got PIP. I've got AutoStacker. I've got Registax. What I don't have, and I haven't been able to find, are my Registax wavelet settings. And this is the black art of how to process wavelets to get phenomenal resolution of things. And I'm just going to stop sharing because we don't need that. And the minute I find those settings, I'm going to plug them in and finish processing my first planetary imaging of the year. And hopefully soon, I've got some vacation time coming. I'll be able to get out early in the morning and continue to do some more. So that's everything I had. Thanks.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so I'm going to wrap up with our last minute announcements. Our next meeting is on June 8th at 7 p.m. Our speaker will be Richard Wagner, who will be speaking on basic image reduction. We'll be taking our summer break, so there'll be no meetings in July or August, but we will have social Zoom time on that night. An email will be sent to the center chat list, and if you want to join, let us know. Plus, we're also looking for volunteers to run the Zoom social night. Give Susan a break. Give others a break. Just if you decide you want to try your hand at running the Zoom social, let us know, and we can have a small training session if need be, and that will help out your center. So you can check out our website. We're on Facebook, Twitter. Check us out on YouTube. And this will be the end of our official meeting. And